All right, joining us now is Scott Braun, the host of the Foul Territory podcast. Scott, welcome to the show tonight.
Thank you. Great to see you both.
It wasn't that long ago that the Mets and Yankees were both in on the same free agent, or in that case, it was a pitcher from Japan known as Yoshinobu Yamamoto. He, of course, dominated for the Dodgers this season. But now it looks as though the Yankees and Mets are both going to be in here on Soto. Do you think there's more pressure on the Yankees to re-sign him or on the Mets to go out and get him?
I've got the Yankees with more pressure based on what they put together this year, that combination. And I do think the Yankees are still a very top-heavy team. And if you take away one of the two that were dominating during the regular season. I know Stanton is obviously a postseason legend at this point, but I do think there's a ton of pressure on the Yankees to get this done. For the Mets, I think they've got a lot more payroll flexibility to be able to actually pull this off. So the Yankees are going to be pushed to a limit that I think they're going to be uncomfortable with.
Well, that leads directly into our next question. In a game of the highest bidder wins, Steve Cohen obviously has multiple more billions than Hal Steinbrenner. So is he advantage Mets in this situation?
I think so. I think it's for two reasons. One is, yes, I think he can go beyond payroll-wise what the Yankees would do, but also if you look at the payroll flexibility that the Mets have right now, they are taking $150-ish million off the books. So I think it would be kind of easy for them to go, okay, Soto, 45 plus, $50 million even a year potentially, unless they sign him for a longer-term deal, and that cuts down the average annual value to make it fit even better. Point is, I think the Yankees are much more pressed. If they sign Soto, there's not much else they're going to do. The Mets might be able to say to Soto, we're going to give you the most money, and we're going to sign Corbin Burns, who's one of the top pitchers on the market, and maybe a Willy Adames to also help you on the offensive side. So I think that the Mets are in a better position right now to sign him if they want him, and I think they do.
All right, there's one homegrown player that Met fans seem very attached to, especially after his heroic moment to save the season. I'm talking about Pete Alonso here. So if the Mets go out and sign Soto, do you think the Yankees make a play for Alonso? They do need a first baseman after all.
They do. It doesn't make, to me, it makes sense, but I don't see it still for Pete. I do think if the Mets end up signing Soto, then Pete is likely gone. I think they'll move Vientos from third base over to first. I think that's a better long-term fit for him. It's weird and it's hard for Mets to fathom, Mets fans, but if they end up with Juan Soto, I think Mets fans will be okay with it, and Pete might sign with a team like the Houston Astros, who really need a first baseman as well. So I think the Mets get Soto and Pete ends up signing elsewhere.
All right.
Wow. Okay, so we're going to go back to the Yankees, though, for a minute, because the Yankees have some issues in the outfield, right? Aaron Judge, metrically a below-average center fielder. Juan Soto had some issues in right field. They didn't even want to bring Jason Dominguez into the postseason at all. So maybe the Yankees could save some money here, right? If they decide not to sign Soto, fill in these holes in the outfield.
Yeah, it's a clunky roster. That's what we saw all the way to the World Series. They made it there, and for a lot of young kids out there, they probably were rooting for the Yankees so that they could tell maybe their coaches, their father, hey, I don't need to practice as hard. I need to be as sound fundamentally. Look at the Yankees. They won the World Series this way. But in all seriousness, I do agree.
Gleyber Torres is gone, though, now.
Gleyber Torres is gone. And I agree, though. Kate, Judge is not, for me, a good center fielder. I also still feel nervous. I know he made it through this season that way. He's a huge dude. For longevity purposes, center field wears you down. He is much better in a corner, and I think they should take that more seriously. If anything, I think there's a chance Dominguez plays in center because he's a great athlete, even though I know they were nervous about him. And you put Judge back in a corner, regardless of if they sign Soto or not.
Nobody puts the captain in a corner. I'm sorry,
he doesn't want to, but yeah.
All right, let's talk about who's going to be leading that Yankees team, though, because they did pick up the option on Aaron Boone. First of all, is he the right man for the job, in your opinion? And secondly, if he is, do they have to sign him to an extension so he's not a lame duck manager?
Yes, I hate lame duck situations. So they came out and announced that. I'm like, and what else? You're going to have him just for one season? That never works in baseball. So for me, with our show, we're covering the game on a national perspective. I think this is where it's good for New York fans to take a step outside and look at Dave Roberts and his situation with the Dodgers as they just won the World Series. We get the same complaints about Dave Roberts up until a few weeks ago that we do about Aaron Boone. All of a sudden, he wins another World Series for the Dodgers. You don't hear that anymore. I think Boone is really in with the players. He's really in with the front office. They all flow well, and just be careful what you wish for. I haven't seen many good options outside of Boone. I think he does a great job. I think, like I mentioned earlier, they gave him a clunky roster. He brought them to the World Series. This was not a perfect team. This was one of the worst fundamentally sound teams I've ever seen as a baseball fan.
He's going to have to live with that Nestor Cortez decision, though.
That's true, but that was him and the front office in meetings. But yes.
Getting a ring fixes everything,
right? It does.
All those bad memories fade right away. All right, Scott, thank you so much for joining us. Great insights tonight. And everyone, make sure you check out foul territory. You can check him out on the podcast.